If you are 38, 40, maybe 42, and you feel slightly behind on retirement, this conversation might make you uncomfortable. Because the biggest mistake people make at 40 is not low returns, it is wrong assumptions. In this discussion with Pattu, we are not starting with equity allocation. We are starting with income risk, job uncertainty, unrealistic expectations, and what really happens when people wake up at 40. I'm joined today by Pattu from Freefincal. He has been writing and analyzing personal finance and portfolio strategy for many years, and his frameworks around asset allocation and retirement planning have influenced a lot of serious investors in India. So, Pattu, thank you for joining.
Thank you. My pleasure always.
Right. So, my first question is from your experience, what are the biggest mistakes people make when planning for retirement?
There are many. I think the first one is delaying. The major mistake is delaying planning for retirement. I think most people don't know the gravity of the situation. Uh, they have to use a retirement calculator to understand how serious retirement planning has to be taken. And it is very unfortunate that when I go to corporate meetings or when I go to government institutions to talk to other employees, I usually make it a point to tell the organizers, please have only young people in the audience, because I don't want a 50-year-old guy listening to what I have to say, and they will have a heart issue if they listen to what I have to say about the corpus needed for retirement and so on. But unfortunately, the older people are the ones who are interested, because they understand that it is time nearing retirement and so on. So I think the biggest mistake that people do is delaying this planning process, investing process, and they assume that the mandatory EPF corpus or the NPS corpus is sufficient for retirement. And they ask very leading questions. Is it enough if I invest 10%? Is it enough if I invest 20%? I mean, this is like saying, if they are waiting for someone to agree with them. They are waiting for someone to say, oh, okay, 10% is enough. That means they can spend the rest and be happy. Real life doesn't work like that. So you have to, like, I think I probably mentioned it in our last meeting. I think if you should aim to invest at least 50% of your essential expenses whenever you start, and that should be as early as possible. So your expenses, list your expenses, list out the essential ones, those you cannot live without, and at least 50% of that should be invested for the future towards retirement. So delaying the process, not investing enough, are the major mistakes. Then the mistakes are with respect to the actual planning process itself. For example, there are many calculators online, and they will ask you to estimate or guesstimate the return that you expect before retirement, right? I mean, in order to achieve the corpus, you need to have a return estimate so that you can understand how much you are going to invest. And people will simply assume 12% without any thought. People will say 12%, 14%, 15%. They don't understand that that is not the equity return. That is the entire portfolio return after accounting for tax. If I mean, I hope I'm making sense, right? There's a single return estimate entry, and if you write 12% there, it's absolutely wrong. You'll get a very fancy, nice number, but it is the total portfolio, the return that you expect at the end of retirement. So that means that you must have equity in it, you must have fixed income in it, maybe you have some gold also, whatever. And this is the return at the end of the retirement. So definitely it will not be 12% or 15% unless you are essentially dependent on luck and you have to pay tax. So it will probably be closer to somewhere between 9 to 11%, somewhere close. If you are very lucky, 11%. And that depends on the market, bull market, and so on. We don't know. So that's the one of the big mistakes that people use. They assume that their entire portfolio is going to be just in equity.
I don't blame them because if you understand the reason why that happens, is because when you open social media, their entire calculation that they show is, how to get to 1 crore, invest this much at 12%. So in their mind, it is that, okay, 12% is something that I can easily get, or it is an average. So as you pointed out, right, that there is fixed income, then there are other asset classes that are there in the portfolio. So they do not consider
So
that.
it's actually a very vicious cycle. So the media, especially the mainstream media, people, the legacy media, they know the weak points of investors. They know what investors will click, and therefore they focus on that. And when they focus on that and the investors click on them, the investors actually believe that that is right and that is the right way to go. But they have actually been targeted based on their own weaknesses. They don't understand that is not actually well intended advice. So it's a vicious cycle. You have to get out of it. And the way to get out of it is to appreciate that asset allocation is the primary aspect of investing. When you start investing, you first ask, what is the asset allocation? You want to review, you ask, how has the asset allocation changed? Everything revolves around that. Instead of that, what people are doing is everything for them revolves around returns. How much did this make? How much did that make? Oh, gold has been shining, so I want more of gold. International equity is doing well. I'm doing so. It's like a very piecemeal kind of return based action without any kind of process or framework in place, and that is the big problem. And you can't, if you invest like that, you are basically again depending on luck. So inside, once you are into the retirement planning process, the wrong return estimate or too much equity exposure equivalently, that is a mistake. And also, people assume that it's very easy to beat inflation. All you have to do is stay invested in equity and you can beat inflation. There is a chance. That's all. I mean, there are no guarantees before retirement or after retirement. And I have seen retirement plans where people assume that a retiree can beat inflation by 4% after retirement. I mean, 4% alpha or 4% real return before retirement is, of itself based on luck. You won't get it for sure. But after retirement, when your equity allocation is at least supposed to be lower and the risk is lower and your risk appetite has to be lower, even if you can stomach it or whatever experience you have, at least the goal warrants a lower risk. You can't so easily assume that you will beat inflation for sure. And having too much equity after retirement or assuming they will have too much equity after retirement, these are very common mistakes. And I think if they base their experience on a single bull run, this is what happens. I think we need a strong, sustained, prolonged bear market in India to get rid of people who are not serious, and to teach people how equity is, and how wealth creation is very non-linear and it doesn't happen so easily. And I think, and I probably we are in the start of one bear run now. I don't know when it will turn, but we need a long bear run. That's when the serious players will stay and the rest of them will go out.
I'm not sure how people are going to react to that, but uh, no valid point, because a lot of people came after 21,
It's not a
2020,
prediction.
21.
I'm not predicting that it's going to
Yeah.
be. No, it's not a prediction. I'm saying that we need a very sustained bear market to teach people about how equity works, and and we also need a bear market in gold. Silver, it's much more easier. Silver is a crazy asset. It's bear markets are very easy in silver. Bear markets are not so easy in gold, especially in the INR denomination. So we need a bear market in both to teach people uh, that their appreciation of risk is very poor.
They can just think and probably plan like what is going to happen if my equity doesn't give any returns for the next 7 years, eight
Very,
years.
very few
Same
people
goes
think
with
like that. Very few. See, they're all drunk. It's the what do you say? It's an intoxication. Returns are an intoxication. You're completely intoxicated. Like gold, for example. Now, think people are a little bit cautious. No, they can appreciate. Oh, gold can fall. Gold can fall. People who entered gold in the 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, if you spoke to them just a few months ago, in December 2025, if you spoke to them, they'd say it will never fall. You're stupid to say gold will fall. Gold is risky. No, so the market will teach us lessons. I think very, very few people do what you suggest. I mean, do what you recommend, and they should do that. More and more people do that. That is real financial literacy, in my opinion.
You already touched upon some of them, but what is that one most important assumption that they factor in incorrectly? Is it inflation? Is it the portfolio return? Portfolio return, you said they anticipate 12%. Or is it the health insurance and medical cost?
Very hard to pinpoint on one, but if I just say real return, that's actually two assumptions involved, because the real return has got the inflation estimate and also the actual return estimate after tax. So the real return is probably the biggest mistake that they do. in terms of assuming that it's easy to beat inflation. It's never easy, and inflation is something that is not in your control, and people take inflation as reported by the government and not their personal inflation. The personal inflation, particularly the lifestyle inflation, because the lifestyle keeps changing. For example, if by some chance a 22-year-old or a 25-year-old starts planning for retirement, their life by the time they are 40 is going to be very different. Their lifestyle will be very different, assuming they're going to regularly work, they find work regularly, and are going to get a reasonable pay hike or promotions, etc., and so on. So a typical career over a 15-year period, which is still, and the retirement is still far away at 40. It is still a good 15 years away at 40. But from 25 to 40, that in of itself, if a 40-year-old looks back, 25 they had probably much lower needs, much lower expenses. Also because the technology is changing, and today it is almost mandatory to have a smartphone. You can't if you're having a feature phone, the what you can do becomes severely limited, and therefore what is new tech, what is luxury, is slowly changing into necessities, and need and wants are becoming needs, and so on. That's where we have to err on the side of caution and assume a slightly higher inflation number, a slightly lower return, so that we account for these uncertainties. And one thing that people probably fail to appreciate is that retirement planning is a yearly exercise. It is not a one time exercise. It's not like you just use the retirement calculator and, okay, I know my asset allocation, I know my investment amount, I know my products to do SIP in, and I'm done. I just wait for retirement. No, it's not like that. The goalpost is continuously changing. The economy is changing. The inflation is changing. Uh, Over the last 10 years, inflation has come down, and it's a good thing. And but problem is when inflation comes down, returns will also come down. In the fixed income, it will come down. In the equity segment, it has come down. You can't expect the kind of returns that you will have during the 90s in the equities. The risk also come down because there are more players. The risk has come down. The volatility has come down, and also so has the return. So expecting 14%, 15% in the next 10 years, 15 years, I think is a severely bad idea. I think it's, I don't know. I mean, people say, no, that's only in large caps. I'm invested in small caps. I'm invested in mid caps. No, then the risk becomes much more. So I think that, I think we all need a proper lesson. We need a proper bear market to understand, to appreciate risk. But the problem is people always over appreciate things. When there is a bull market, they're over enthusiastic and go all in. When there is a bear market, they become overtly cautious and pull out everything. Not both of them are extreme actions in investing will not build wealth. I think we need some kind of moderation where you appreciate, okay, you need a good deal of fixed income. You can't say, no, that is only giving me 7% return. That is only giving me 8% return. I want more equity. I want more mid caps. I want more small caps. No, you need a balance in everything. And I think that balance, either we teach it to ourselves or life will teach it to us.
Nicely put. But one of the things on that mid cap and small cap, and then the argument that it is going to give better returns. Looking at data, probably that is true. It is going to give better returns, but then would it give better returns to investors? I seriously doubt that. The reason is because they work in cycles, and when you have to withdraw that amount, are you really going to withdraw that when it is doing really, really well? Most likely no, because the luck has to sync with withdrawal timing. So
So I think the single mantra. So after all these years, after all these hours and hours of data crunching, and of course putting money into mutual funds and staying invested over these years, the one thing I've learned is nothing works all the time. Nothing works all the time. Whether you are talking about a passive versus active debate, whether you're talking about large cap versus mid cap versus small cap, or international equity, which means US equity for most people, US equity versus Indian equity, gold versus silver, gold versus equity, whatever argument you choose any A versus B argument in finance. You can, if you wait long enough, you will see nothing works forever. Sometimes A will work, sometimes B will work. What will work in the period that you put your actual money in Nobody knows. Nobody knows. That is where the diversification makes a big difference. That is where the goal based investing makes a big difference. Goal based risk management makes a difference. Portfolio rebalancing makes a difference. So you can't just invest and forget, and you can't look at so that's the problem. You don't have an eagle. People don't have a eagle's eye view of the portfolio. They have a very worm's eye view. They're looking, oh, this is doing well, I want more of this. This is not doing well, I want less of this. That doesn't work. If you look from the above, you understand that everything will fall at at sometimes, everything will rise up at sometimes. You have to have a little bit of both, or a little bit of everything, to have a properly diversified portfolio. But the more assets you have in your portfolio, the more will be the labor, the more will be the management. So it's easier to have just fixed income and equity, and a balanced amount of each, so that you can ride the bad times and the good times.
I have more questions on that. I'll come back on that later. Now, when we are talking about retirement, so let's say if someone feels that they are behind on retirement planning, so what is that one most dangerous mistake that you see them doing? Maybe going overboard on equity or something else.
So if, let's say, I'm 40 years old. Okay, that's a typical wake up age for most people. 35 to 40ish, right? People wake up at that time, and they realize that they have to do something for retirement. They have to do something for their family, stabilize the family, and so on. That's a typical age. I mean, I'm hoping the median age will go down lower over time, but at that age, you probably have about 15 years to retirement. 55 is your retirement. And I mean, there are exceptions where you can work until 60 and so on. But most people should be typically ready until 55. They can't assume they'll work until 60. The first thing is that the first mistake is they assume they'll work longer. We don't know that. That mistake is made by lawyers, CAs, doctors, or even government servants. They make for example, my own retirement is until 65. Right, I'm 52 now. I'm nearly 52 now. Uh, I can only work until my health permits me. It's and I go at the rate at which my health is going. I am very likely to probably not work until 65. I don't know. So there are uncertainties there. So you wake up at 40, you realize that you are underperforming with respect to your retirement growth. You need to do more for retirement. First of all, don't assume that you will work until 60. You will work longer, but you have to. You may have to. That's the first thing that you have to tell yourself. I may have to work longer than I want to, and there has to be a severe cut down on your essential expenses. There may be a necessity to cut down on lifestyle, and don't go too much on overboard on equity and assume that the next 15 years you can make up for the lost time. That making up for lost time is probably the biggest problem that you have. There are two things here. One, people assume that I can invest in small caps and get more returns because I'm not investing enough. This is the argument by young people. The young people say, I'm not investing enough, so I'm compensating this by higher returns. No, you're not. You're taking more risk. That doesn't mean you're going to get a corpus, higher corpus. Similarly, the older people, the ones you asked about, the older people, they assume that they can make up for lost time, make up for lost wealth by taking on again more equity risk, maybe even just large caps. That may happen, that may not happen. That's a big risk. So which means if you want to take that risk, you must have good health. You must be in a position where you can continue to work beyond 55, beyond 60, and so on. So you must be ready, but at the same time, be ready to sacrifice your lifestyle, be ready to take care of yourself, and so on. So it's a very delicate balance, and that's where the financial planners are needed. That's the real what should I say, the cream age, or the cream need for SEBI registered investment advisors, in my opinion. We were just talking about it. I'm fresh from a conference of fee only advisors, so my brain is fuddled by these ideas. So so that's where I see them. I mean, I know the cream of people, they're all 35 plus, the clients who want a financial advice, and most of them have this problem. The advisors have been discussing this. Many of them have this problem that they're falling short of their retirement goals. So what do? You have to cut corners. You have to cut corners practically, but not assume that I won't cut corners. I'll just continue working after 55 or continue working after 60. That may not happen. So it's a very difficult process. And that is really where you need professional advice.
I do agree that people do need professional advice. But one of the issues that I've heard, these financial advisors, I have a lot of respect for them, but I'm talking about issues for the benefit of people, is that they look at the portfolio, they prepare, they do everything on Excel. They forget, or I don't know, maybe because I'm hearing from the investors side, so I don't really know. They do not factor in the behavioral aspect of the investor. So even if you have a great plan, if it is not aligned with behavior or the risk tolerance of the investor, would it really work?
So it depends on the experience of the advisor. For example, that's the reason why I am not an advisor. I am a very cold, unemotional, very logic driven person. I mean, I will, if somebody comes to me for advice, I'll say, do this. No, no, I'm scared of doing this. I'll say, then you are not, I'll just simply tell them you are going to fail. And that won't work as an advisor, right? So I have seen the experienced one, they are largely about talking to people. In fact, there are people who focus on this alone, this handholding part alone. They are always talking to clients much more than the actual calculations and so on. And if we are at a position now where AI can do all this, AI can do the calculations. You don't need a calculator. You don't need Excel. You just need all the inputs, and at the background, you need to train it with the advice that you will typically give, and the AI agent will do all this. Your job as a SEBI registered investment advisor, of course, is to check the advice before giving it to the clients, but also the handholding part. You're always telling them what to do every month or every 3 months, or when the market crashes, you kind of tell them what to do and so on. So it comes with experience, and not everybody is cut out to do the job, right? But if you work with, that's where the wavelength match matters. The advisor and the client should have the correct expectations when they start the process, and the client should feel that this is the guy I can talk to, this person I can talk to, this person when I'm in trouble. And if that works, and I think there are, I mean, see, Fee Only India, which I co-founded along with several other people, that services nearly 15,000 families. And it has serviced nearly 15,000 families, and unbiased advice, not commission based advice, not AUM based advice, percentage of AUM based advice. And largely the feedback has been excellent. I'm not saying it's 100% foolproof, but largely I would say 80 to 85% of the feedback has been excellent with respect to that. That is, the feedback is the advisor is there when you need them. That's all. That part will take care of the emotions and the handholding and etc. and so on. Now I think it is now, the process is now going to become agent driven or agentic, in an agentic way, where the AI will do all this. You are going to handle the emotions, and we are going to now see clients segregated into two people, willing to pay advice segregated into two people. Those who are like me, cold hardened idiots who want the logic, who want the data. I don't care about the emotions, I'll handle the emotions kind of people. I hope there are more people in the world, but assuming they are. And then the emotional aspects of people. No, I need help, I'm worried about it, I have self doubt, I need reassurance. I may not, worried that I will pull out of equity, etc., etc., all the gamuts of it. So these emotionally driven guys are going to be working with human advisors. These uh, unemotional guys, they're going to be simply going to go to Gemini or Perplexity and simply put in the data and ask. And because they know that they like the logic, and they will use the logic to appreciate whether the AI is giving them good answers or not. So I think we are going to have a segregation, and that segregation is already happening, because in 2026, DIY is not just DIY, it is AI assisted DIY. So it's already that. It's completely changed now. So that's how I see it.
Thank you for that, Pattu. I'm sure a lot of people are going to find that helpful. Now, coming to the next question. So, let's say someone is preparing for their retirement. So, one of the issues that they will face is not knowing what will happen in the future. Will they have increments? Will they have promotions? Will they have layoffs? So, how do they factor all of this while drafting their retirement plan?
See, layoff is something is that is something that you will already know. I think you should know whether you're going to be laid off or not, because you need to be aware of it, especially when you're in a startup. The chances of a layoff becomes so much higher. So, which means that people working in startups, they must have a very clear appreciation of whether the company is doing well, whether there is enough cash in the books, how much is the debt, and so on. And they must be ready to jump ship. So that is a very career. Uh, that path is, I would say, segregate that from financial planning. Segregate that from investment advice. You look at it primarily because you need the income to survive. Because that you need income tomorrow to pay your groceries. Forget the retirement planning. This is a much bigger problem, right? Retirement planning comes later. But if you are not in work, if you're not employed, you can't pay groceries for tomorrow. So which means that that's an immediate concern, but that means that you have to be awake. And if you are working in a job or a service where layoffs are very common. For example, this happens always in tech, in tech industries or any industry. Whenever there is a new technology, for example, AI, for example, the COVID demand. When the COVID hit, the demand for tech-based services blew up, right? And also at the same time, AI was also around the corner, and because of the demand, I know for a fact that many people hired more. There are many firms which hired more, and then quickly they realized, oh my god, we have overhired people. We are not growing as much as we expected to grow. This is the big problem. The company hires people based on not on their actual growth, but on their expected growth. And that if that happens, there will definitely be layoffs in future. So I think people who are in the industry, they must be keyed on towards this idea about whether they lay off coming or not, whether it's possible or not. And that's some completely different from our investing personal finance kind of situation is what I would like to view it. So which means that you will have to be employed. You will have to keep earning money right until retirement. That's the basic premise of retirement planning. If you can't do that, then all retirement planning will fail. You can't do retirement planning if you are not going to be employed for the next 5 years, and then you get a job, then you employ next 5 years. That won't work for retirement planning. So this is essential, indispensable. So I would say, uh, treat that with the utmost priority. Upskill yourself, whatever. Do whatever to keep earning money. Maybe moonlight. Do something to keep the cash flow coming in, so that you can keep the oil, keep the food, put food on the table, etc. Kind of situation. Only then comes the retirement planning. Would you agree with this? I'm not. Let me ask before I talk more.
So let's say somebody who was 35 in 2019, that person knew that AI is going to come, but in the last 6 months, concerns have amplified, right? So everyone is now really fearing. So earlier when they planned, they thought that, okay, I'm going to invest 30% of my salary and my life will still be sorted. Suddenly this thing comes up. And it is not about just this AI thing. Nobody actually plans for these kind of roadblocks in their retirement planning. Similarly, nobody plans for good promotions, very high income later on. Where exactly should I use these two aspects? I'll give you an example. So when I bought my home, half of my salary was going into the EMI. Before that, I was saving nothing. Later on, I realized I could save a lot. Promotions happened, increment happened. So I did not bake all of this in. So should we be factoring in based on the industry that you are in 5%, 6%, 10%, 15% jump that includes promotion also, so that you're not really stressed about retirement planning? One of the fear that we have is big, large corpus that we see 15, 20 years down the line. And what we do is we compare that with today's salary, right? So, do we factor in that piece? Second, do we factor in frequent roadblocks in our earning potential? Not talking about somebody who is employed by the government. I'm talking about these private sector employees or somebody who is running even a business. So how do you plan all of those things?
You can't plan. I mean, I agree with you that you cannot plan, but I'm saying, but when there is a small hint of a disruption, you must wake up. That's all I'm saying. You can't plan before the disruption happens. That would be you. Nobody has that kind of vision, right? But but there must be some kind of forethought, some kind of planning ahead when you have a disruption. Because see, people have been talking about job loss because of AI, not just in 2026. They have been talking about it since chat gpt was introduced, but people have been talking about it for 1.5 years. So that does give you, because the disruption is not going to be immediate in most people, most cases, I would say. There will be some time lag, but what are you going to do? And I think you should, if your job is not certain, people should ask what are they going to do if they don't have a job today, and they should ask it at least once a year, and or at least maybe 6 months. I don't know. I mean, see, it's very easy for me to preach because I'm sitting in my nice tenured position, and I cannot be overtly preaching about this. But I'm saying this is what I think people should do, because they do have this difficulty, and exactly the case that your personal situation is mirrors that of everybody. People fear job loss not because they won't have enough for retirement. People fear job loss because they have a home loan running, and they're worried that if they lose the job, what will happen to their home loan? This is the major problem. This is the reason why this logic of don't be in a hurry to prepay the loan, invest and prepay in due course never works. It never works because they're worried. No, I will lose my job. I will lose my job. I will lose my. That is why I tell people, okay, you don't need to actually prepay your loan. You aggressively save it and put it in some other instrument. You put it in a debt instrument, and if your job is gone, then you can use prepay from that amount. If your job is not gone, that will become part of your liquid wealth. Even this logic is hard to, no, dead. It's a sword hanging. All sorts of analogies come in place. So that's my problem is, okay, you have a job insecurity, but what are you going to do about it? Is what now. I have not heard a concrete answer from anybody who's. They are only saying my job is not certain. Fine, your job is not certain. You have a home loan running. I completely appreciate it. Okay, you go and prepay. That's also fine. I'm not going to. It's an emotional thing, whatever, that's all fine. But what are you doing about this disruption? Are you doing something to get another job? You can't do something to stop a layoff. I mean, if the layoff happens, It's not in your hands. But what will you do then? That is the question, that hard question is what people should ask. And I've been saying this for a long time, that you should have some skills from which you can earn up, because the internet has changed the way we do business. There are people who have crores of revenue with minuscule overheads. Because of the internet, because of the online presence, the income and what do you call overheads, there's no proportionality. The income is very huge for some people, not everybody. Whereas for a dukan wala, it is very different. The overheads are significant for a dukan wala, and the revenue is not proportionally more. So so the internet gives you're a techie, and most people who are techies, we are addressing most people who are techies. You are a techie, you can do something about it. I'm saying, which means that when you have a job, you should act like it's always going to go away. You should act like it's already gone, and find some other source of income, some stream of income which you can turn on when you lose the job. You can't maybe you are not allowed to earn it when you have the job, but when you lose the job and when you're in between jobs, at least there must be some way in which you can use your skills and convert it to income. So people should seriously think about it, and I think that is priority number one. I would say it's even above retirement planning. It's very hard to do, but they have to do it. If they are in that position, they must do it. That's how I view it.
And people should reflect on this, especially in today's times.
Again, I'm this unemotional logic based guy. I think that say this to my students in IIT Madras, or any educational institute for that matter. They spend a lot of time cribbing about, oh, that guy is bad, this department is bad, that teacher is bad. They are not focusing. Complaining about these people will not improve your grade. You are not going to change the system. If you want to do well, then you must be super duper in time management. In IIT Madras or in any IIT or IIMs for that matter, intellect does not determine your grades. Intelligence, IQ, intellect, nothing. It is all about time management. That is all. That is the superpower. The same superpower will continue to work wonders when you are employed as well. If you manage your time instead of sitting, going to a tea shop, eating all those bhajis and hot samosas every day, smoking and saying my boss is bad, my supervisor is bad, they are bad, they are bad. You focus on your health, focus on every second matters, focus on your time and find something to stay in employment at all times. So it's all about time management ultimately in life. I mean, even for it works for a student, it works for an employee. Again, it's most people will not resonate with what I'm saying because I am I'm this cold unemotional animal, but that's how it is.
No, you're wrong there. Many people resonate with you. Maybe, once I publish this video, you can go and look in the comments. You'll realize that. But it has been wonderful speaking with you, talking
My,
to you. Thanks a lot for joining and participating in this
my
discussion.
pleasure. Always my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, if there is one takeaway from this part, it is this: retirement planning does not start with equity allocation. It starts with income stability, realistic assumptions, and behavior. In the next part, we move into structure, asset allocation, risk management, and what retirement planning should actually look like in the final 10-15 years before retirement. And thanks again to Pattu for sharing his insights. And this video is for educational purpose. Please do consult a registered financial advisor before making any kind of investment or financial decisions. Thank you and have a blessed day ahead.